So I'm here in the Azure Machine Learning Studio. Let's walk through the steps that are required to enable a notebook here for use with Snowflake's Snowpark API. A couple of assumptions. Obviously, I'll assume that you are familiar with the Azure ML Studio and how to navigate the environment here. I have also already created compute, so we won't be going through the process of provisioning compute here, as I've already done that. Again, I'll assume that you understand that process here in the studio. So with that, let's go ahead and create a new notebook. I'll give it a name. And we will create it. Okay, so that notebook's now created. I have some compute provisioned. I'm going to go ahead and start that compute. While this is provisioning, we'll go ahead and walk through what's required. Go ahead and actually implement what's required to enable this notebook for use with Snowpark. So in the first cell, what I'm going to do is implement the commands that are necessary to get the Snowpark library installed on the compute. So we'll go ahead and do a pip install for the Snowflake connector. With pandas support. Then we'll go ahead and install Snowpark. All right, and that looks good. Go ahead and create some cells here for additional commands. I also want to import a couple of supporting Python libraries for some things I want to show during the video here. We can see that our compute is now up and running. Let's import OS. No, not that. And I want to import JSON. I have a file over here that I've uploaded called creds.json. This contains my credentials for Snowflake authentication, and we'll use the JSON library to read from that. I also want to import, obviously, the Snowpark library. So actually I want to import the session module from that library. So I'm going to say from Snowflake, Snowpark, import session. All right. That looks good. And then I want to understand my default location on this compute instance. So I'll do a get current working directory. I do this out of habit more than a requirement here. It's not a requirement here on Azure ML Studio, but on some notebooking platform, notebook services, you will from time to time have to specify a full path to your authentication credentials, assuming you're authenticating that way. And so I've just gotten in the habit of using this module to get an understanding of where I am on the file system. In this case, I could actually get my credentials from Azure Key Vault, and perhaps I'll do that in another video. But so we've got that in place. What else do we want to do? I want to get my credentials and assign them to a Python dictionary. So we will go ahead and do that. Let's say should give me my credentials. We'll go ahead and check that and verify that here in the next cell. Actually, we'll do it up here. Just print our username to make sure that that looks the way we want it to look. And once we have that, we can go ahead and establish a session, a Snowpark session. So we'll create a session variable and call on the session module here. Pass in my credentials and create the session. And then once we have that session, we can begin issuing queries against the Snowflake backend. So one example of that might be to show the tables to which I have access. So some simple SQL here, and we'll assign that to a data frame. Show the contents of that data frame. Okay, so let's see what we've got. Let's go ahead and bring in the libraries here. Oh, one important step that I neglected. Glad that this showed up. Snowpark requires Python 3.8, and so by default, we are at Python 3.10, so we need to change that. So I'm going to go here to the drop down and select Python 3.8 Azure ML. And we'll try this again. That looks much better. So we've got our libraries in place. Now we'll go ahead and execute some of the other cells, bring in some additional modules. Key among them, the Snowflake session module. Go ahead and show our current working directory. Let's set up our authentication credentials. Let's go ahead and create our session, our Snowpark session, and then let's take a look at the tables to which we have access as a part of establishing that Snowflake session. All right, and there are the tables to which I have access. Querying one of these tables via Snowpark, very simple. Go ahead and pick a name here. Copy that to the clipboard and use another data frame to issue a second query. And we'll show the contents of that table. All right, very straightforward. So in this video, we have demonstrated what is required to enable a notebook on the Azure Machine Learning Studio with the Snowpark API. And then we created a session, a Snowpark session with that API, and then ran a few queries, showed the tables that are available to us on Snowflake, as well as the contents of one of those tables, again, on Snowflake. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments below, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for watching. You'll see me in the next one.